So, a quick update about the book giveaway. At least most of the books have made it to their destinations halfway across the globe, and this is cool. This was really quite fun, and I want to do something similar. I may have a YouTube live event. Those are kind of fun. The issue is the audience for this channel is literally all around the world, and so we're all on different times. It's really the same time all across the globe, but we're on different schedules. So if you have some suggestions of what might be a good time, let me know. I'm not, as you know, terribly organized, but let's see if we can make this happen. So in this video, and I always feel like I'm starting off videos saying, well, this is the strangest, weirdest video I've ever done. And that's probably not true, but this is probably in the top 10%. And the reason is because we so often say and value critical thinking. Back when I was a college professor, every single major would sell their major. They'd say, come do this, and we're going to teach you critical thinking. And of course, I did the same doing a cognitive science degree. But when it comes down to it, critical thinking is a contradiction because it's not thinking that's actually critical. And if we look, so let's explore this. And if we look at cognitive errors, cognitive biases, science, cognitive science, psychology, they've documented over 300. I used to have a poster of this on my office door. It's like 350 cognitive errors and biases. And I've talked about several of these things like cognitive confirmation bias, things like representativeness heuristic. And there's, again, just a really long list of these. So how do we discover these? How do we figure out that our thinking can be flawed, that our thoughts can be biased? How do we discover this? Well, it's interesting because if you look, some thoughts have stayed around for thousands of years without ever being tested. And some humans live their lives without ever testing their ideas. And if you look at Aristotle, so this is going back thousands of years, and one of the ancient Greek philosophers believed that heavier objects would fall more quickly to the earth. Not based on any direct experience, but just that's, left brain spinning stories. In fact, this went untested up until about 500 years ago when Galileo decided to start dropping objects off the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And what he discovered is that actually it's irrelevant how big an object is because the mathematics work out because more massive objects do fall. Do have a greater gravitational pull, but then there's more mass to pull. So everything works out harmoniously, and all objects, you have to account for wind resistance, but independent of that, all objects fall at a constant rate. But that truth was only discovered by empirical investigation. I mean, Galileo had to get up there and drop this stuff off the Tower of Pisa. So what do we mean by empirical? Well, the word empirical means sensory experience, which is just another way of phrasing consciousness. In other words, it's consciousness that has the final say. It's consciousness that has the element of skepticism. It's consciousness that's the correcting factor. Not thinking, but conscious experience that's actually critical here. And so, again, I've talked about V.S. Ramachandran and how the left brain is the belief system that it forms and maintains beliefs, but it does so without question. And of course, the split brain patients were a great example how the isolated left brain would weave all kinds of interpretations and stories without question and never pondered maybe these are incorrect. And of course, V.S. Ramachandran backed this up with another group of patients who had right brain damage. So the skeptic was taken offline. Now the left brain was free to tell any story that it wanted. And I've mentioned some of these stories where, again, when the right brain is offline because of stroke or injury, the left side of the body is paralyzed. And so these patients, they couldn't move their left hand at all. And yet they would tell stories. So the left brain would create stories such as, well, I could pick up a table with my left hand and lift it over my head if I wanted to. Of course, they never could. And another one was when Ramachandran said, well, point to my nose with your left hand. And of course, the left hand is sitting on the table because it's paralyzed. But the left brain is so inventive. It said, well, I'm pointing to your nose right now. You can't see it. In other words, it actually hallucinated. Its storytelling capabilities were so profound when the skeptic was offline that it created hallucinations. So it's not as if we arrive at these at any critical point, or the skeptic comes online by thinking. The skeptic is about reality. And when we talk about reality, we're talking about conscious experience. That's the only correcting factor for our thoughts. And so it is pretty interesting that so when we meditate, what do we do when we meditate or when we're mindful? In both of these practices, we're getting to direct conscious experiences. In other words, we're not thinking about taking a breath. We're conscious of breathing. We're not thinking about washing the dishes. We're washing the dishes. That's meditation and mindfulness. And isn't it rather odd and interesting that the very thing that is the skeptic, that helps keep the left brain in line, is the same state that we're going for in mindfulness and meditation. In other words, it seems to have if we're going to talk about something as truth, which again, we can have a storytelling version of truth, a conceptual version of truth, or as I talked about in another video, we can have a conscious, direct experience, and that can be truth. What's happening right here, right now, that I can be conscious of, that is truth. And if the storytelling fantasies of the left brain are out of line with that, that is critical. It's not critical thinking. We might even call it critical consciousness. And that's the only thing keeping that left brain in line with reality.